Welcome back for part two of my conversation with my friend Sharon, who is a hospice nurse and who just happened to be my husband Lance's hospice nurse during his final months at home. In this episode, we're going to get to the heart of hospice, how it supports patients and families emotionally, addresses fears, and creates meaningful moments. If you missed part one, we covered the basics of what hospice is and how it works. So if you haven't seen it, check it out. Sharon, I think before we get into this conversation about hospice, we should tell people our story about how we met and became friends, because we did talk about it a couple of times in the previous episode.
Yeah, I was working for Home Health and Hospice Agency and decided that I wanted to do home health when I first came on board with the agency. And it was probably about, I think, a year into it, maybe less. I can't remember now, that I got to be Lance's home health nurse and got to visit often. I'd usually come like usually like once or twice a week, maybe. I can't remember now. It's been so long. But we got to know each other and just kicked up a friendship, I guess. I felt like it was quite natural in our just visiting after we got all the particulars done with meeting Lance's needs on the medical side. I just really enjoyed both your friendships and your sense of humor. I just felt like we had a lot in common in that respect. So it just kind of lent itself over time. Uh, I think we just got to see each other outside of um, being a home, doing the home health. I mean, you lived in the same town. It was not that far away. So that was pretty easy. And then just seeing each other on a regular basis, it got to the point where really look forward to coming to visit. So that's kind of how it started.
Well, there was definitely a lot of laughter. That's something that Lance and I always had in our home, and it was so good to have someone else there with us at such a heavy time. Lance had just come out of the hospital. He had suddenly lost his memory and needed all kinds of therapies. And we were working on his medications, and he needed a home health nurse so that we didn't have to constantly go back and forth to the hospital. And I'm so glad that they sent you out, because those few months that you were there, like you said, it was a couple of times a week in the beginning. It was a pretty serious time, and it was so good that you were willing to laugh with us through it. And then I remember when it was time to discharge services and we knew that you weren't going to be coming back anymore, I was so sad. And I said, can we be friends?
Yeah, yeah. And I know with the course over the years, I know there's some friendships or there's people that will say that, but it just doesn't lend itself to be naturally so. Um, so I was curious to see, because I always tell well, you need to reach out to me. I'm not going to reach out to you so that I'm not crossing professional boundaries. Because what if you just said it just to be nice and I'm calling you next week, kind of thing. But that was not the case in our situation. You did reach out and I did go around and we did visit and it was on a casual, which was nice, casual and nice, cultivated a great friendship with both yourself in particular, but I also had Lance, which was great too. So that was nice. I enjoyed that. Yeah, that time.
And
Which then lent itself to being in contact with you. So when the time did come, and I didn't know, that was going to be something so soon, to be honest. Uh, so when you told me the situation and the decision that you both made, and then when you came to me and asked me, don't feel you've got to say yes just because we're friends, but would you, consider being Lance's hospice nurse? And I didn't take it lightly either. I didn't go, yeah, 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 that'll be okay, because this was a first for me. as in having a proper, true friendship with somebody. I had no idea that how it was going to affect me. Aside, could I provide professional and be professional, but also be friends at the same time, wouldn't get murky and complex and end up being disappointing for yourself because you didn't feel like I was going to be there on a professional level because of our friendship. So I had things to truly consider because I wanted to make sure your needs were met. So I felt that I could, and hence the reason why I accepted that position.
Well, Lance and I were both so glad that you did. I'm so glad that you stayed in contact with us those couple of years in between being his home health nurse and then going on to hospice, because it meant a lot to him too. He was such an extrovert and he needed people around him. And because of his memory loss, it was hard for him to remember people, but he always remembered you. So I'm really, really, really thankful for the time that we were able to spend, all three of us together. And I think the reason that it worked, having you there as his hospice nurse while also being our friend, is because you and I are able to separate professional from personal. So when you were there
Mhm,
for Lance's appointments for hospice, you were his hospice nurse.
mhm.
And I respected that. And it was outside of that time where our friendship grew too.
Yep, I enjoyed our walks by the lake and taking pictures of our shadow. That has continued on even to this day, right? I'll go places like I'm at the beach or I'm walking by the lake and I'll all of a sudden see my shadow and I'll put a wave high and take a picture and send it to you.
Yep, and I do the same.
And you'll send it back. I think that was cute.
Well, anyway, I'm so grateful for you, Sharon, and I really appreciate you doing these episodes with me because I know that this is going to be helpful to so many. And I didn't really have any experiences with any other hospice nurses, but I've had experience with a lot of nurses and can say you're truly one of my favorites.
Thank you. It was a blessing for me too.
Well, let's get into the questions.
Uh-huh.
Hospice isn't just for the patient, it's for the family too. How do hospice teams help caregivers and loved ones cope during this time?
Yeah, it's funny when people ask me how many patients I have, I tell them the average number, but what people fail to see is the number is actually exponential as it includes family members too. And they're not all in the home by the bedside. I've had many conversations with relatives over the phone who live out of state. The number of times I've been on speaker to include family members or FaceTime, to include family members that live back east or, that kind of situation during my visit to the patient so I can give an update, which is nice, on medical status and answer any questions that they have at that time. So not only I'm looking at the patient, but I'm having to remember the camera and visit with the people also in the living room that are right there. So it can get a little complex sometimes, but it's just the nature of what's expected and what's needed. Because just because family loved ones are living far away doesn't mean they're not interested. They're just different dynamics of their ability to get to the bedside. But thanks to technology today, it enables them to do virtual. So that's helpful in a number of ways. I would say the most important help we provide is on a practical basis. It's helping them provide care such as bathing when a person is bedridden, changing the sheets while the patient's still in the bed. I'll change a person, invariably the caregiver will say how easy I make it look when I'm much better at it than they are. And while smiling, I'll let them know, I hope so. I've been doing it for 30 years. You just started. And I'm giving you a crash course on how to do this. So yeah, I better be better at it than you. Um, I get so we our job is imparting of our tricks of the trade, as I always call it. Tricks such as layering all the things that need to be going underneath the patient. So instead of turning them over individually for each item, I can teach them how to get things all prepped and layered so that the patient just needs to be turned once and twice over, and then you've got everything underneath them at the same time instead of doing it multiple times, and makes minimalizing the discomfort that you're going to cause the patient. So it's, things like that, that and enable giving them the ability to do their best to keep the patient in the home and keep them comfortable, which is nice for both of them, or for whoever is involved. I
Mm.
always think of both because it's usually invariably a couple, and invariably the couple is much older than you and Lance were, and their ability is harder, so it's nice to help them in that time period.
Well, even being as young as we were, because Lance was only 50 when we had him on hospice, it was still very challenging doing all those things. I'd been his full-time caregiver for over 11 years by the time we put him on hospice, and I thought I knew everything because I'd been doing it for so long, and there were things that I did not realize at the end of life. There were things that I hadn't thought of, like him just not having the strength to sit up anymore. And I had changed sheets with him in the bed before, but he had always had enough strength to move around. So
Mhm,
I'm
mhm.
so thankful for everything that you did for us during that time and that you were able to teach me some things too.
Well, thank you. That's good to know.
Well, I know that there's a chaplain on staff with the hospice agency, and we did use the chaplain services in the beginning, but then COVID happened, and we just kind of said only the essential people need to be in our house. But what role do hospice nurses like you play in addressing those spiritual and emotional needs for the end of life care?
Part of the job of hospice nurse includes addressing the spiritual and emotional side of the end of life. It comes in many forms, and it's definitely not a one size fits all. As you spend time with the patient and family, you start to understand what their beliefs are and what's important to them. One of the most important parts of my job is leaning on my team. We have a chaplain, like we talked about, to assist with spiritual and emotional needs, a social worker to help with legal resources, or if the patient can no longer be in the home and needs to go to a higher level of care, they're really good at going with finding in their network to find what works for different patients and different needs in the community. Um, we also have a hidden gem, and that was our massage therapist. She was phenomenal in meeting the needs, not just on a physical level, but also emotional needs too. They're good at, along with the bath aid. They're on more of a practical, but also emotional companionship mode. They're really good. All of them are really good at, it's almost like having an extra set of eyes to be able to give you and see the information and give you the information on what needs to be done to help that patient and the family. Like with bathing, um, the bath aide was able to look over skin issues, let me know if there's a reddened area they didn't know about, or the family failed to let me know, or they didn't know about it. So they do a good skin assessment, and then that way I can come in and take care of the needs of the whatever the situation is. So there's lots of different things. Communication is key, and so I work with them all, and I've always blessed with really good team members that was just as passionate about their job as myself. So I didn't feel like I was talking on deaf ears, don't care, just there for the paycheck. None of them were ever like that. You really cannot be in hospice, the world of hospice, and not have the passion or the compassion for what it is. You just can't. You won't last long, let's put it that way. And I've seen people come and go. And only the true ones that have a true heart for it are the ones that stay.
Well, from your experience, how can families prepare for the changes that come from hospice? Do you have any tips for talking about it with the patient or other family members?
Yeah, we tend to generalize the decline typically that takes place, as it really does differ from one patient to the next. We'll tell them what to expect, like such as a patient will eat less, they will sleep more, become weak, and can be most likely bedridden. They can become unresponsive, that may last from hours to days. And we reiterate the education and support as these things happen. The way families can prepare for hospice or changes in the home is to have a plan ahead of time. Unfortunately, I see more often elderly members have a chronic disease, which can be then at that point be considered terminal, but they wait until they have an acute episode and end up in the hospital, now unable to go back home to be live their independent life as before. And it's at that point family members need to drop everything and come together with a plan. There is never a convenient time to think about it, but truly in the ER and the patient is about to be discharged, needing full care has got to be the worst time. And that happens a lot. And I really wish I could put the message out there. If nothing else, it would be just like talk about it and have a plan. I tell the elderly to make a plan while they can ensure that they end up with the desired environment. They don't want to wake up and find the family put them somewhere they least wanted to be. As resources in the community dwindle, become less available and more expensive, it's even more important to have a plan in place.
I think that's really, really important. Planning is key. And it can be really hard to have those conversations, but they're so important. And I can tell you from my own experience, my husband ended up with he had some grand mal seizures when he was right around 40 years old. And it changed everything for us. He could no longer be completely independent at home. I couldn't leave him alone anymore. He had mobility issues. I had to change the entire house, and they wanted to send him home, and I wasn't prepared for it. So I was able to get them to keep him a couple more days so that I could go home and make the changes. And I was in my late 30s then. I can't imagine having to do that when you're for your parents when they're in their 70s or 80s or 90s.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I remember it was one summer in particular a few years ago, and I think it was yeah, it was before COVID hit. And I was spending, all of a sudden, we just had an influx of people just become terminally ill and acute, and spent literally, I had about 5 or 6 patients that lived on the outskirts of town where I live, and I was out there daily to those people's homes. And I literally had to give them all a crash course on how to take care of their loved one because they literally got sent home literally to die the next day, just about. That's how chronic or how acute their terminal illness was. And it was, I just remember it just being a very difficult time. And I remember this one lady in particular, I mean, she just burst into tears because she's like, I can't do this, I can't do this. And I'm like, yeah, we can. We have no choice. We've got to do it. And I literally went there daily to ensure and give her the support to help her get through this because she was just landed in her lap. And it was so weird because I look back and going, there was like, yeah, like 5 or 6 all within, and they all died within a couple of weeks of each other. So it was truly imminent that the situation and the help, the practical help that they all needed at that time. It was really difficult, but truly, yeah,
Well, what kind of advice would you give to people then for how to prepare for that? I mean, I would say from my own perspective, have those conversations. That is the
yeah.
first. But what kinds of things do you talk about during those conversations and how do you prepare for that?
Yeah, more than once I've had the hard talk with them, and that is, you're living in this big house, 4 bedroom, 2 baths, and you are not able to keep it up as much as you would like to. Gardening, all those things that you've loved all these years, you're finding it more difficult to handle. And invariably, what you really need to be thinking about is downsizing, moving. If your loved one, if the person is, think about who you want to take care of you and where you would like to be. Sometimes it's not what the family think. They thought, oh, it's going to be the oldest daughter, for sure. She's been the one in charge all these years. And when actual fact, they're like, don't send me home with her. She'll make me do this, and this. Yeah, she's in charge, all right. I'll feel like I've joined the military. I want to be with my youngest one. We'll have a blast. I know we will. She's more carefree and what the heck, whatever floats your boat. That's the one I want to be with. The other one will be making me eat my greens and take all my vitamins every day, which I can't stand doing even now. So, I was like, truly, when they've got their homes, I've seen it where their bedrooms have been upstairs, and I'm going, why? Why would you go into a house and have your bedrooms upstairs, knowing full well, unless you've got a nice electrical chairlift that's going to take you up those stairs? I remember when I bought my house a few years ago, and I thought ahead. I'm not in that house anymore, but I still thought ahead. It's one plan, floor level. It's got 2 steps to go up and down because 10, 15, 20 years from now, I want to be able to stay in this home and, not worry about, oh gosh, really can't make those stairs anymore. I had one guy that he they didn't have any downstairs bedrooms. They were all upstairs, and he ended up on the couch. And he didn't want a hospital bed. He's like, no, I do not want a hospital bed. I want to be just left alone on this couch. And that's where we met all his needs. It was a challenge trying to turn him over on a couch, but we did it. But they had the opportunity to make changes ahead of time and they didn't. I really believe people just don't think that's going to happen to them, that they're always going to have that strength to take care of themselves until it doesn't. And yeah, and it is a difficult, I mean, especially when you've had people living in their homes for 40 years, it's all they've known, this is their home, then just make the adjustments in the home ahead of time, even. So that's my biggest, I mean, for me, my right now, when I realized I was going to sell my home, personal situations where it was just ch changes needed to be made. I didn't want to, and this was just 10 years ago, I didn't want to go into a big house. I didn't want to live by myself. I knew what was coming up down, 20 years down the road. I thought ahead just because of all the experiences that I've seen around me. And I talked to my middle daughter, my third one, and I said, well, you've always talked about taking care of me in my old age. How about if we start practicing now, as in being around each other. So I asked my son-in-law and daughter to convert their garage into a one-bedroom apartment. And that has been the best thing. I don't need a huge mansion. I've got everything I need right here. It's got its own entrance. It's independent, but they're right there. It was a win-win, and I've not looked back. And I told them, I said, I'll sell my house. I'll pay you rent, and I don't have to mow that lawn. You know, you can take care of all the incidentals if something goes wrong, that kind of thing. Um, And to be honest, and that might not be for everybody, but it was a plan I've already got in place. And so if I become bedridden today or tomorrow, we've got two doorways that I could still stay here, and my daughter's right there. And I can still be in my home and have needs taken care of. So unfortunately, like I said, people don't realize that you're not just going to go to sleep and pass away. That's it, from out. Doesn't happen like that. The majority of the time, it's usually a period of time that they're going to need full-on help. And I think the best thing I think that they can do for their families is to get a plan in place.
I couldn't agree more. And because Lance got sick so early on, we planned ahead for that. We didn't think that he would need it as soon as he did, but I had a walk-in shower installed in one of our bathrooms and we had grab bars everywhere. Our house was set up for
Mhm.
someone with mobility issues. And I'm so glad that we did that. And I'm prepared for that when the time comes for me.
Yeah.
So really important, have those tough conversations, because one thing that's guaranteed is that we are all going to die. And like you said, most people don't just die in their sleep. You end up declining and you need help. So
Mhm.
the sooner you can prepare for that, the better. And so have those conversations and make a plan that works for you.
Yeah. Perfect.
We did mention a few patients a few years ago that all lived only a short time once they went on hospice, but that is not always the case. In fact, that's not usually the case. And I know that there's a lot of fear around the word hospice and what people think it means. People think it means maybe they're giving up or that it's only for the last few days. Can you talk a little bit about what hospice really is and what are some of the common misconceptions you've encountered and what is the reality?
Yes, I've encountered people feeling a sense of giving up. It would feel that way, for example, a person with cancer and giving up on a chemo treatment, a person with repeated visits to the ER related to acute episodes of COPD is tired of going to the ER in the middle of the night, waiting for temporary relief, again, just to come back and come home and feel it coming on a few days later, or someone with congestive heart failure and having exacerbated episodes of edema and just don't no longer want to keep going to the hospital. When a person's getting older, frailer, and the trips to the hospital can be more taxing than the reason that they're going to the ER for treatment, it can feel like they're giving up, not wanting to do that anymore. What they don't realize until they come on hospice, more times than not, the hospice nurse, along with the hospice physician, is able to provide the treatment with the same results in the comfort of their own home. The service is 24/7, and the on-call nurse can be called at 2 a.m. when the episode of respiratory distress or issues come on. They can talk to the patient or the caregiver and provide recommendations on hand, like when they first call, to start de-escalating the problem, and then a visit is made to ensure the problem is being resolved. I've made many a trip to patients' homes, early hours with low oxygen levels and not feeling well, only to find out that the tubing was either twisted or disconnected. I troubleshoot over the phone first and then head out to their home. I've seen numerous patients, times when a patient with cancer receiving chemotherapy having to end the reasons due to toxicity and their body's unable to cope. I've come into the home with the family all gathered around the bed, ready for the patient to pass. Invariably, they stabilize and start to feel better. Once all the chemicals from the chemo leave the body, they do start to feel better. Appetite returns, strength returns, but the cancer's still there. They still have a terminal illness that is going to be most likely their demise, but they find themselves in a better place, able to enjoy the time that they have left. Sometimes it can be weeks, months, even over years, in some cases. The hospice program enables to manage the symptoms and create a better quality of life and support to them and the caregivers to enable better care and remain in the home.
Listening to you talk about all of these things just takes me back to that time of hospice. And it was so scary going into it because hospice does mean the end of life. And that is scary to think about both for the patient and for the family members. It's scary to think about what's going to happen at the end of life. It's scary to think about the decline. And for those of us left behind, it's really scary to think about that, our future without the person that we love. So, how does hospice help manage that fear? Do you do that through conversations? Do you have any resources available? Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, I believe having the support by people who are familiar with the end of life process can help tremendously. They have counted, such as myself, so many variables and gained knowledge to be of help to people. They're able to walk you through the generalities of what to expect. I usually liken it to birth. You have the general process of going into labor, etc., but it can take on many versions from one female to another. Some can go through the process in 2 hours, and some can go from hours to days. The dying process is the same. If I got a nickel for every time a person asked me how long do you think they have, I'd be rich. The question usually starts off with, I know you can't say, but how long do you think they have left? I've only said a specific time once, and this patient, she was 90 years old. She lived on her own, but with family support daily. And she had cancer. Her goal was to not die before the end of April. And I was on the scene in January, because she had a grandson who was getting married. And it was a destination wedding, and she wasn't going to go, but didn't want to ruin it for the rest of the family. She made it through the time period, but had declined with the usual signs and symptoms of decreased appetite, sleeping more. The pain had increased. I saw her daily due to the cancerous tumor needing daily dressing changes. So we established a closer relationship over that time. Usually I'll see people between 2 and 3 times a weekly, but for hers it was daily. She'd become very weary and tired of the whole situation. She asked me one day, point blank, how long did she have? I found myself saying 2 weeks. I was like, I was like, I can't believe that just came out of my mouth. But I also remember the 2 weeks coming up, and at the end, I was like, oh crap, I've got to go see her tomorrow and explain why I said 2 weeks and I was wrong. But she died Sunday afternoon, and it was 2 weeks. It would have been 2 weeks on the Monday. Yeah, and it was Mother's Day. She lived real close to me, and the on-call nurse that works the weekends knew of my closeness with her. So normally will get a report Monday morning of all the things that have gone on over the weekend, but she knew I would want to know right away. So the on-call nurse called me and let me know. And so I was able to drop everything and go over and be with the family who I'd gotten to have quite a close relationship with because I saw them every day, for quite a period of time. So that's the only time I've actually said a specific date or a time because I always tell family members, and it's the truth. patients always have a habit of making a liar out of you. Once you say a certain time, they will go over it or under it. If you even look like, oh, 2 or 3 days, I guarantee, I feel like it's God's way of making you feel, keep you humble, and God's way of letting you know you are not in charge. So I keep my observations to myself, but will prepare the family. If I see things are getting closer, I'll usually say it's going to be sooner than later. That's usually my sentence that comes out of my mouth. And when I'm starting to see definite signs, I will say they are transitioning. This can take a little longer than you think. I also, and then I will prepare them and say things like, this is happening sooner, you're getting closer. Prepare them for family too. I'll say if there's any other family members that want to come and say goodbye, now will probably be the time. Invariably, I'll get questions of family like, when should I let the family know? And I'm like, well, do you want them to have a chat conversation with the patient, or are you waiting until they're unresponsive and everybody just wants to look at them? What, oh, truly, like what are your expectations? Sometimes the family, the caregiver will be like, oh, what if I'm wrong? What if I tell them that it looks like, and they come all this way and they don't? I'd be like, and I says, I says, you can give them the information. And I always tell them, I'm giving you the information that I see right now. And what you do with that information is totally up to you. I remember story just popped up in my head. Guy was working fire department and he was on the job. I came to the facility where his dad was, and I could see, oh wow, this is a huge change. He looks like he's going to go any minute. And I was afraid. I was like, oh, I was getting nervous all of a sudden. I don't know if because they're firefighters, EMT, whatever, first responders. All of a sudden, I got really nervous. What if I'm wrong? And I thought, no, think professional. You always tell them what you see, and they do what with the information, how they feel. And so I called him, and next thing you know, the fire truck parks outside. He jumps off and jumps out, and he comes, and his dad passed away it was within an hour I was there. Yeah, so I was like, oh, thank goodness I listened to myself and went with my gut and not let the fear of what if I was wrong get in the way of that situation. So I had another story. I like to tell stories because then it really makes it sink in. So I had this one guy he had pancreatic cancer and was bedridden, a younger, like in his 50s, so not old in any stretch in my books. And he had started declining, and his family had just come from, he was living with his parents, but he had lots of family from California, and they had just come to see him and just left to go home. And it was about 3 days later, this was like Monday, Tuesday, and it was like Thursday. He asked me, am I dying? And I said, yes, you are. I mean, he was just like such a decline that I thought, oh my gosh, it's imminent any time. But he was still responsive because I think really because of his age, he just has that extra strength. And so he was responsive to the point. He just said, am I dying? And I said, yes, I believe you are. And so I tended to his, practical needs and emotional. And I went to go see his mom. And I said, I believe it's time. Your son is going to die any time now. So they called the family. They all came running back up from California. I walked in the house the next day. He's sitting up in bed. And he's point blank like, I thought you said I was going to die. I said, I rest my case that you guys make a liar out of me the minute give a specific. And I was like, well, I guess God chose differently, and said, you got another day with your family. Here they are. And I felt so humble, humiliated at some point. Just your ego gets in the way sometimes, I swear, because you just want to be right. All the signs and symptoms were there. It's like this had never happened to me before. And anyway, it was Friday when that happened, and he died on the Saturday.
Oh, wow. So
Yeah.
so you were right. He rallied so that he could spend that time with his family.
Yeah, and his family were there. They'd all come back. So I was like, oh, thank you. There was a reason for it. But yeah, it's a very humbling thing, but you do go with your gut and you do tell the family what you see. It can change, but this is what I'm seeing right now. I always tell the family, like the caregivers, especially if you want to call your family, you feel inspired, you feel that gut to talk, call them. If they don't come, you're the messenger. All the ins and outs and emotional, whatever, spiritual, whatever is happening between that family member or friend and the patient is none of your business. It's out of your hands. Your job is to let them know, go with your gut and say, I feel like you need to know that it's getting closer. And if you want to come visit or do whatever, you know, um, so be it. It's on you. I says, and then if the person doesn't pass away, that's okay. You've done your bit, and it's on on the other person's shoulders. It's their responsibility to take that information and do with as they see fit.
That's really great advice, Sharon. I will say that when we put Lance on hospice, I talked to him about it and we made the decision that this was our time. He'd been sick for 25 years, and this was our time to spend just the two of us, just kind of resting and enjoying each other's company and doing what we wanted to do and not worrying about anyone else. Because as a caregiver, I was constantly worrying about everyone who was a part of Lance's life. And hospice was a time for me to let that go. It was just about us and keeping him comfortable and getting the answers and the support that I needed during that time. So I'm glad that you mentioned that.
Good. Thank you.
Well, thinking about our experience with Lance, what was it like for you transitioning from being his home health nurse to then being our friend to then becoming his hospice nurse? And did that change anything about how you approached his care during hospice?
One of the important things you learn on the job and find it is important is to be able to read the room is how I put it, within minutes of walking in to one's home. As the saying goes, with the importance of a first impression, by this time, both family and patients are usually nervous about where they are in the process, especially if they've just been discharged from the hospital. Now, all the professionals they had just been surrounded by are no longer there. So you have to enter that that home looking and sounding confident, not a know-it-all, but reassuring that you're there to help. Nothing like pressure when you don't know anybody. But everyone expects you to know how to help and have all the answers. So you start to learn to read a room. Who's in charge of running the home? There's usually a designated person. What are their expectations? How much help do they need? How much education? So while I'm smiling and nodding and answering questions or asking or reviewing, a lot of times I'll review what the hospice program is all about because they had the admit yesterday and it's so much information that I will literally just automatically reiterate what to expect. And while I'm smiling and doing that, I'm looking around the room going, okay, how much education do they look like they have? How much they need? Blah, 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 blah. I'm just doing all that within, like I said, because they're total strangers to me 30 seconds ago. And so back to your question, knowing Lance and yourself ahead of time helped me tremendously. I got right into helping right away because I already knew what was important to Lance and yourself. I knew I could take on the professional role of being Lance's hospice nurse, but still be your friend, because compartmentalizing things is something you do well too. So I knew it would fit. You knew what I was doing. It's like, why aren't you smiling while you're taking his temperature? It's like, because that's my job right here. I've got to think methodical, you know. And not have we can have a laugh in a minute. Um, my hospice visits would be professional, centered around Lance, ensuring all needs were being met. You would have a list of questions and concerns we would go over after I'd completed a physical assessment. Remember all this? Went over his medications and supplies, etc. Discussed changes that have occurred since the last time we visit, since my last visit. I knew saving the last part of my visit was important for you and to talk about you and what you are doing to take care of yourself, even though that didn't mean I have to ask the question, so what are you doing to take care of yourself, right? It would involve talking about different topics, just asking questions and then talking about things that of interest to you. And I could see if you were taking care of yourself, just in the demeanor, if you were able to laugh and smile and feel lighthearted, then I knew things were good. If you were quiet or you had a lot of concerns, then I know that you were getting bogged down and you needed some extra help, in that area. I remember you purposely leaving the room so that Lance could have that time. You could confidently go outside and tend to the garden, not worrying about Lance if he's needing help because I was there. So it gave you that time for yourself. But it was with intent, I believe, that Lance had his moment to himself without you being hovering, being the helicopter caregiver, so to speak.
That's exactly what I was doing. And yes, I was a helicopter caregiver. And I would do it the same way if I had it.
Yes, yes, and I don't frown upon that for a second because that was exactly what was needed. Because of his memory, he was unpredictable, and so you had to be there all the time. He would get up thinking he could stand and
Yeah,
go to the bathroom, but you knew he couldn't, and he couldn't remember that he couldn't.
right.
So no, there was no time, no moment for, oh, he'll be fine. That'll be the moment he'll decide to get up and end up on the floor, and you're having to pick up the 6'4" person off the ground or call the 911 and get the fire department to help. So
Yep.
absolutely, that was the reason why you were the helicopter caregiver. It was a necessity.
And I will say that Lance was not 6'4". He just looked like he was 6'4" to you. He was only 6 feet tall.
That's because I'm 5 foot nothing. So anyone I look up to it must be like over 6 feet. Was he really? Oh dear, that's funny. But you truly have to be able to read the room and figure out what's what for people, and that it comes with time. When I'm teaching new hospice nurses, I'll say it's over time that you'll walk in that room and go, oh yeah, I got it. I know what's happening here, and I know what I need to do.
Well, I can say from my side that I'm so glad that I was able to have you as my friend walking through that with me. It made it so much easier on me, and I cannot thank you enough.
I'm not just saying it, it's been my pleasure. It truly was my pleasure, even though it was hard.
Yeah, it was hard, but I think it was easier because we did it as a team.
Yes, yes. We were on the same plan.
But in Lance's case, since we kept him at home, were there any unique moments or lessons from providing hospice for someone you already had a relationship with?
Oh,
stand out?
Hmm. I've had a few occasions I've known the patients from from being the home health nurse. It's usually been the case that they found out that I'm on hospice and specifically asked for me. That's not to say I'm better than my fellow nurses, but they knew me and immediately, want me to help with with the family. I've also gone into homes not knowing I knew the family till I walked in the door. So I've been happy and relieved. I've lived up to their expectations and had a good experience. So yes, there has been a few occasions.
Well, looking back on your time as a hospice nurse, what is one story that captures why this work matters so much to you?
Well, I'm going to tell you three. Is that okay?
Of course.
Well, and the reason why I chose three um, is because, and of course, one of them involves Lance. Um, is because a lot of the times people will tend to not realize on a spiritual level how we have to be intuitive and truly listen. So I'll share something personal, and that is every night I say prayers, and the last part of my prayer is tomorrow, please help me be in the right place at the right time so that I can be of help to people around me. That's the last part of my prayer every night because I don't know what's going on behind closed doors. I don't know what's going on at different times. I just know I want to be there for that person at that time, whatever it looks like. So I know God's involved in my job, and so I have to lean on Him to help me be in the right places at the right time. And sometimes it can look so like, what? That is so weird. But I knew it was important to that person. And I felt impressed to say something, thinking they're gonna think I'm crazy. But invariably, it's been correct. And so one of them came to mind, and this lady had cancer. She was in her 80s, and her son was getting married. And so when I came on the scene, it was probably about 6 months because about January and then July, I think, was when her son was getting married. And she was doing really well. And so her daughter would take her to pick out the dress that she was going to wear. She got the earrings, she got the shoes, to keep her distracted from the cancer and her decline. She loved being able to go outside and be in the garden, and it was just really difficult. She was just feeling nauseous a lot, and the appetite decreasing, and so you could just start to see this decline. And invariably, I will see people make the goal what they want to see happen because I know, like with Lance, his 50th birthday, I knew he was going to live for his 50th birthday because it was important to him, and so he did. So a lot of times I really see mind over matter. I truly do. Well, I came up on a Monday and the wedding was on Saturday. And I came in on Monday morning going, there's no way she's going to make it. All of a sudden, she just took a dive over the weekend, was unresponsive, typical transitioning of breathing, the whole bit. And I thought, it's going to be any day. Husband's not realizing that he was all ready to go for an eye appointment somewhere. And I'm like, sir, uh, you need to, I would not advise you to go anywhere today. You need to be home. In fact, you need to call your daughter and to help her come be with you. I says, I really believe that things have taken a turn and it could be any time. This was Monday, right? Friday, she's still with us. And I'm thinking, there's no way. I keep thinking, there's no way she's going to want to still be here, knowing full well that the wedding is on Saturday. And I'm thinking, on this level, thinking there's just no way she's not going to want to spoil the wedding by still being around because that wedding's not going to take place because she's on her deathbed. And every day I would go up and I'd be going, why is she? I don't understand. Something's up. Friday morning, I'm driving up to their home, and it suddenly dawns on me. And I know it's going to sound totally like way off there, but she wants to wear the dress. She wants to wear the dress. And I'm like, I'm not going to tell the family that. They're like, and I could just feel it, just like with all confidence and surety, just knew. And fortunately, the bath aid was coming that morning. And so I told the daughter, I said, she wants to wear the dress. She needs to have her dress on. And so bath aid, love her to bits. She was all on board and she bathed her, put the dress on, got her hair all done, earrings on, makeup, shoes, everything. And my own personal care is when person's on dailies, I will go twice a day. They don't have to, but I do just because in the morning and things can change. And if you don't go till the next morning, that's 24 hours. That's a long time for the family to not have you there because they want to know what are things looking like by the minute by that time, not 24 hours later. So I would come back in the afternoon and I was getting ready to come in the afternoon about 3:30, 4 o'clock, and I got a phone call from the daughter saying that she passed away. And it's like, I knew it. I
Wow.
knew it. She wanted, and I did go, and I looked in, and she just looked like she was just asleep, dressed to the nines, ready for that wedding. So
Oh,
she could be there in spirit, because I know that when their body, their soul leaves their body, they're there. But she had that dress on and she was able to be in spirit at that wedding. And it was able to go on as planned.
wow.
And so I was like, yeah, I just things like it's one of those,
And
you
like
know.
you said, you have to trust your instincts on that. I'm so glad that you said that you pray about that every night. And I can see that now that I know that. I didn't know that about you before, but I can see that um, that's how you are the way that you are because God is leading you.
God is leading you. Yeah. And you can't do it otherwise. You can't go on your own because you, like I said, you've got too many instances of variables you just don't have that capacity on a human level to take care of things on that basis. Um, the next one I was thinking about was another lady. She had cancer. She was the patient and she took a decline quickly. I was only with them for a couple of weeks, and so I was still getting to know the husband, and she really she was very independent, very wanting to do things as much as she could, and she just went down really quickly to the point where it's like, oh my gosh, she's unresponsive. She's going to go any time now. And I'd seen her in the morning, talk to her husband, and I thought, oh my gosh, I've got to give him that speech as far as if there's anything that your wife, feels like she needs to hear from somebody, you feel like you've got to call them and let them know now is it. And again, I leave it up to them. And I said, can you think of anybody that, because it was about 3 or 4 days again. And I'm thinking she's staying around for something, somebody, some reason. And so I just said, I know I'm going to sound like I'm crazy, but truly, is there anybody you feel that she needs to talk to or hear from? Not talk to, but hear from. You can just put the phone up to their ear and they can hear that person's voice, as I really believe that it's a thing. And I was like, he said, well, I guess I should call our son. He had one son who lived back east, and he's like, well, he'll be at work right now, so I'll just give him a call later on when he gets off work. And I'm like, I don't think so. But again, I'm like, okay. So I had to, my next visit was like 30 minutes away, which meant I was going to be there over an hour. And I walked out the door and I was all getting ready to go to this one visit out of town, and something just said, you need to stay close by. And so I switched my visits around. I went to another patient's home that I knew would be okay for me to come all of a sudden a lot sooner than I'd planned, because that's not always the case. And so I went to go visit. And as soon as I'd done with that visit, I walked out the door and the husband called me and said, she's passed. And I was like, oh my gosh. It's like, he should have called their son. It's like she missed it. And I walked in the door and looked, did my usual to confirm that the patient had passed. And and then he said, "Yep, as soon as our son said goodbye, she passed." I just wanted to cry. It's like, you listened. He says, "Yeah, I just knew I couldn't wait till the end of the day, and all she had to do was hear his voice, and she passed away." And I was like, "Oh, thank you, thank you." Um, so that was another good one. You just have to go by the spirit and go with your what's been you feel instinctively to say and do. They can come in all different shapes and sizes, but it means something to that person, whether you got to know them 6 months ago, a year ago, or like literally within 2 weeks. That you reach out and ask, and you can help. Because to me is part of your job. Um, my last one, of course, includes Lance, and I was thinking about our trip to the falls
Oh,
and how I don't normally do that. I always ask the patient and their families, if there's something that's really special to them that we can help provide or make it possible for you to do. I say now's the time to do it when this person is walking, talking, up and around. We've got their pain under control, but you can still make it possible. And a lot of times it's to go visit, go places, go do things. And I'm all about, yes, let's do it. And yours, Lance, was to be able to go to the falls and um and
Shoshone.
have that Shoshone Falls and and spend that last time one day out, as you guys normally used to do, as with the cameras, and photography was your hobby that you had together, and spending that time together. And I know sunsets, because we always send each other sunsets on our phones when we're somewhere. It's like, I captured one, we'll send it to each other. So I knew that was important. And then you started talking about how, yeah, would really like to go, but it's really difficult for Lance to travel. And then we got going with our ideas on getting a motorhome and and go up to the falls on them. And I remember you saying, yeah, and I really want a nurse to be there, and you're just staring at me. And I'm like, I don't know about work. They're going, this is going to be out of the boundaries of being able to go in that capacity working for my agency. I'm like, I can't do that. But I'm thinking, oh, how can we manage this? And so I went to my supervisor and I said, look, I said, this is the situation. And I'm going to go as a nurse, but friend. And I said, so it's not going to be during company time, it'll be on the weekend or whenever it is that we do it, be outside company hours. And I won't be going as a hospice nurse per se. So with that in mind, you and I got this plan. And I remember going, yeah, I can drive. We could figure it out. And then it's like, well, come with me and let's look it over just in case something happens that, I can't drive and you need to take over. And I'm like, okay. So, so I remember us going to look at the vehicle and the guy went through the whole thing, took us a little tour on how everything works. And I'm like, yay. And then you got to thinking, having I asked one of my daughters to come with me because I was like, oh, we might as well make it a day. And if we need extra help, then we've got extra help. And in my mind, I'm thinking, I won't feel like I'm the third wheel, and you'll be able to take that time together.
Well, and I think we were on the same page with that because I think how it happened was I asked you if you wanted to bring somebody with you, and you'd already been thinking about that. So
Yeah. So obviously we're thinking of the on the same page, like you said. But I just remember thinking, oh, sure, I can drive this. Oh my gosh. I used to drive a 15 passenger van with all my kids and some. So I was used to driving a large vehicle, but it'd been a while because now I was driving a Toyota Yaris. My kids called it Mom's Little Bubble. It was that small. And so to go back to something big, I'm like, oh, okay. And as it turns out that you didn't want to drive, and I ended up doing all the driving.
I did not expect you to do all the driving. It just turned out that way. I've had a lot of problems with my driving since right before we put Lance on hospice. So I really, really appreciate that you.
Yeah, no, I was glad I was able to do it. And yeah, I was nervous, but I thought we're going to do this. I mean, driving down to the falls and going, oh my gosh, hopefully I can get down and I can get back up, but we'll be just fine. And I just thoroughly enjoyed the day. I really did. And I was glad I took Amber with me because I enjoy all my girls, but I think you guys have gotten to know each other. You're chit-chatting in the back. I was in the front with Lance and talking about music and cranking up the stereo and rocking out here and there. I remember doing that. And when we got there, you had everything planned as far as meals were concerned. We were able to just comfortably let you guys go do and be you, be that couple that took your cameras. And I remember even, taking pictures here, there, and everywhere. And to me, to know that it was something that was extra special and God was there, that we had the most fantastic sunset coming home.
It was, and it started while we were at Shoshone Falls. So
Yeah, we thought we were just going to be there a few hours. We ended up being there all day, and it was it was magical, just magical. Amber and I look back at fun memories of that day, and just thoroughly enjoyed ourselves, and to be able to be part of it, um, to me that's a God-given thing, truly a blessing. Yeah.
well, and I don't even know if I told you at the time, but that was 3 days before our anniversary. So it was our last anniversary trip. Uh,
Really.
yeah, yeah. It was Lance and I, because he was in the Navy when we got married. He was deployed for 6 months, 7 months after we got married. And from that point forward, we celebrated something whenever it came to us because he missed so much during that
Mhm.
month. So we would say, well, this is our anniversary trip. This is whatever. And so that was our anniversary trip,
Anniversary trip.
our last anniversary together. And I'm so,
Wow.
so grateful. I can't even tell you how much it means to have those memories, spending that time with you and Amber and Lance. And the funny thing was that we got to the end, and the sun was going to start setting, and I looked around and there was nobody else there. We were the only ones in the park, and you and Amber disappeared, and Lance and I were just there alone watching the sunset. And it was so incredible. It was so beautiful.
Beautiful, huh? Yeah, I was glad. Truly, both of us were glad to be a part of that. Yeah, and see that happen. I know my supervisor, she's like, "You're doing what?" What? Really? Oh my gosh. Are you sure? No, but we're doing it anyway. Because this has got to happen. I can't say no. Oh, so it was truly a great day. Thank you for asking us.
Thank you for saying yes and for doing everything that you did to make it happen.
You're welcome. Mhm.
You talked a little bit about how you ended up on the hospice side, but it does take a special person to be a hospice nurse. What was it about being a hospice nurse that drew you to that?
I've always enjoyed helping people. I've always enjoyed and wanting to truly do it. I always say it's working in a building, whether it's in a care facility, the hospital, doctor's office, you're in a building. And the nice thing about being out in the field, as I put it, is the autonomy that it presents. It just gives itself. I'm not hearing call lights going off. I'm not hearing phones going off. I've got 5 minutes with this patient and I've got to move on the next because I've got 2 hours to deliver all these pills to everybody. And then I've got this chore list. Um, and it literally just gives you 2 minutes. I used to enjoy working nights because it afforded me that ability to go and, oh, so and so was looking really down tonight. I just need to go in and check. It would be like 2 in the morning, I can go in and check on that person or see to their needs. I remember working in a hospital as an aide, wasn't a nurse yet, and this young gal, I think she was probably in like her 20s, and she had really thick, crinkly hair. I mean, it was tight curls. And she was just sitting there crying. And I'm like, it was like midnight. And I'm like, oh my gosh, what's the matter? She's like, I'm going home tomorrow and my hair. Can't get this comb through it at all. I'm looking and feeling such a mess. And so I'm like, okay, it says, you give me 1 hour and I will come back and help you with that. So she couldn't get her out of bed to take a shower or anything. So I got those shower caps that you warm up and I massaged her hair and I probably spent over an hour little by little going through every single inch of her hair and getting it all straightened out. So she could go home feeling, yes, I can show my face in the morning. But during the day when all doctors and physical therapists and nurses running around during the day, um, the call lights going off, you do not have that ability to do it. It's a whole different level altogether. So I know right in my heart, I've always just enjoyed being able to spend that time on different levels to be able to meet their needs. And hospice, home health, and specifically hospice, because even on home health, you're limited with the time that's expected because it's all paid for, by Medicare, and they expect, no, you've got to have so many visits done in the day. You need to have so much time in each home. Hospice, it's a different ball wax altogether. You've got that ability that, if it takes an hour to be with that patient, then you've got that hour. It was on salary, you had X amount, you had a certain percentage of certain average number of cases to maintain. But how you managed it was you had the autonomy to do that. And if I felt like I needed to go twice a day to see a patient, I could go twice a day to see that patient. It was within the purview of the ability that was given to me. And to me, that's the only job I've seen um, that have been able to do skilled nursing and still get away with being able to meet the needs on a professional, like skilled level, because that's important too, obviously. But then have that needs be met on just to go the extra mile. And so I didn't know that's exactly, I was drawn to it. I didn't know exactly what that would entail, but I was happy to see that I could. And the people that I work with for the agency I work with, I don't know if it's like that with every agency, but I just know that with the agency I've worked with, that they afforded me that autonomy to do that. So left me to it because they knew I'd take care of my patients. So that was it. That was happy for me.
And that you do. You definitely take care of your patients. I know we were so blessed to have you as Lance's home health nurse and as his hospice nurse. And I know that all of your patients are blessed to have you. You're an amazing
Oh,
nurse.
thank you. I appreciate that very much.
Well, thank you so much, Sharon, for sharing all of these stories. And I especially appreciate the stories that you shared about Lance. I love hearing that. And I know that our listeners will enjoy listening to your stories as well.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Let me have that time to share them with you, especially. Thank you.
Well, if you're curious about hospice or if you're facing it with a loved one right now, I hope that these episodes have been helpful. And I hope that you will share these episodes because these are conversations that are difficult to have. And if you can share this with somebody, I know that it's going to help. Thanks for joining us, and I'll see you on our next episode.